It's Podular. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is episode 74. It is April 9th, 2026. The Scotty are here, even though it's a little bit delayed, to give you the 16th edition of the Artist Spotlight Series, featuring visionary floral sculptor Anthony Ward. That's all we've got on the agenda. So before we get into that conversation, let me bring in my trusty co-host, Mr. Scotty Fuller. Scotty, how are we feeling one week?
Got it. Yeah. Back for the third time, partner. Pumped to be here. Seems like we finally might have a handle on this new format that you guys are seeing us in. Do we have any announcements Sound Tribe related?
I don't think so, Scotty. I think we've just got a couple of shows this weekend, right? We've got the Gather Outdoors event with the Disco Biscuits, Daily Bread, a lot of other great artists out in Vermont, taking place on Saturday the 11th. And then we're going to have the makeup show at the Brooklyn Bowl in Philly coming up on Sunday here. So not a whole lot to talk about here today, but sounds like we'll have some pretty cool music to recap next week. So,
yes,
other than that, my friend, I think it's time to bring in our special guest.
Absolutely, and shout out to anybody that's going to be at those shows this weekend, man. Those they tend to play up to the crowd they're around. So that festival set should be pretty good, and then that Makeup Sunday show's got classic written all over it. Anyway, let's get into it, guys. I'm excited. Anthony Ward has always struck me as more of a mystical spirit as opposed to a human made of flesh and bones. If you do a little internet research on him, you'll see him described as a floral sculptor. That's a term that none other than Maya Angelou gave him. But to me, that only scratches the surface of what he does. What Anthony has built over the course of his career is something that I genuinely don't think has a name yet. He's a voice for the flowers he creates alongside of. He's a dancer, a sculptor, a performer, and a spiritual practitioner. He does all of it simultaneously in real time on stage with some of the most unique acts in music. For over 20 years, he has been showing up to some of the most powerful rooms on the planet and filling them with something that people consistently say they've never seen before. That list of rooms includes everything from presidential inauguration balls to Alex Nelson Gray's psychedelic church Cosm, ceremonies with the Dalai Lama, Japan with STS-9, and of course, Maya Angelou's living room in New York City. We've been really looking forward to this one for a long time and a week now. And if you're a member of the community and has ever caught a glimpse of him and wondered, what is that and how do I learn more? Well, consider this your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Anthony Ward.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me, man.
Hello.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Thank you.
We are pumped to have you, man. The listeners will never really understand how we moved mountains to finally make this work. But shout out to your local public library, guys. Support your local public library because it is the reason that Anthony is able to talk to us without sounding like a robot right
now. Well, Anthony, again, thank you for joining us. Let's start at the beginning with you and your background, right? So in our research on you, we learned that you were one of 8 kids, right? So that's a big household. As someone who grew up performing, where do you remember your musical influence coming from? Was it your parents, your siblings, or just kind of the whole household combined?
My family was really the big part of my music introduction. My mother and father would play music after our Sunday breakfast, and we'd all get together. And invariably, when we had company, my dad would say, "Come on out here and put on a floor show for us." And I would dance. I would go out and dance for the company, and it just, my 6-year-old self started out doing that.
Love it. What were some of the earliest musical artists you remember your siblings and parents putting on in some of those dance parties?
My parents were really into jazz, so it would be Miles Davis and Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald, and then they would put on the Motown, and then we would just all get down. It was just like the family thing to do.
Awesome.
So since we talked to you last, I've watched a few Soul Train reruns on YouTube, and I'm starting to get it. But talk to us a little bit just about the importance of Soul Train in your childhood, and just the kind of timing of you growing up with that show being kind of at its peak.
It was like my church, and it was, think about this. This was America with, a couple hundred beautiful, creative Black kids on TV showing their art, being free. And it meant the world to us to see that.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Love it. Yeah. So as far as dance goes, right, it
Mm.
seems like a household thing and kind of a family ritual and everything like that. When does that start to become a little bit more of a art form for you and something that you start practicing?
When I was in high school, I was my last year, I started taking ballet classes. And, thankfully, I have my dance teacher was very, very well learned. Her people were with the American Ballet Theater, so she had really great training. And she made me take ballet 2 years before I could take the other classes. She'd say, I know you have rhythm, you could dance and everything, but you have to get the basics. And so she was very, very strict about that. So I have a really great foundation with my dance, and that is ballet.
Love it.
And so as far as ballet goes, read a cool story about you talking about Mikhaili Baryshnikov doing 6 pirouettes in the turning point. What happened in your soul when you witnessed that?
Mikhail Baryshnikov. He was like the
Mikhail
male
Baryshnikov.
dancer.
You corrected me on it before, man. I don't know if I'm ever going to get it right, but thank you.
Mikhail. Watching him do 6 pirouettes, like I could do 1 at the time. But when you are in motion, spinning around with all the discipline that it takes to hold your position, it kind of feels like you're flying on the earth, like you're connected so well, but you're so free as well. And to watch him do that was breathtaking for me.
I have a question that's not written down. That just it's kind of a novice question, and it's one of me and Nate's favorite parts about this is we often have artists on here who are way outside of our fighting weight in terms of the ability to talk about these things. How do you not get dizzy?
You spot, so that means you look at the same thing as your head turns. You look at the same place every time. Your eyes go right to the same spot. It's called spotting.
Okay, so
That's
like you pick a tree and you come back around to that tree every time.
exactly. You train your focus on that, and you hit it as you're going past every time.
I'd
Mhm.
imagine that's one of the first things you probably learn as
Mhm.
in ballet. Thank you for sharing that. I've never noticed that.
Yeah, we'll have to work. We'll have to work on that with you next time we hang out, Scotty. How about that? But
I've got Jay in his first dance class right now. Actually, believe it or not. So
Wow.
so
there you go.
next time
Very
he's
good.
spinning around, maybe I'll try to coach him up on that.
Love it. So dance, Anthony, makes complete sense, right? Given everything you just told us. But when did flowers enter the picture? Was there a specific moment or person that unlocked that for you?
Very early in my life, both of my grandmothers were amazing gardeners. Dolly Mae Hall, my dad's mother, and Lovey White, my mom's mom, were both like extra special gardeners. They had their own different ways of gardening. But my mother's mother was kind of scary, really. She was like always She loved us. We knew it, but she had this raspy voice, and it was always like, "You do this, you do." And so she would go into her garden and transform into this soft, smiling, gentle person. And I was just like, Mom, who is that woman out there? Who is that?
Mm.
And so I would follow her around her garden, and just, I was so curious because of that. And then I noticed the flowers. That's really brought me into noticing flowers.
Mm. That's so we officially are past the point that we were able to get with the rough signal, and I'm so glad because I didn't get to hear that story uninterrupted from Static last time, and that is so beautiful. Just the idea of somebody, a hard shelled person in your life, just completely shedding that in a garden.
Yes, I told this story to Alice Walker, and Alice told me it was because she created a place where she could let her guard down, where she
Sure.
felt safe. So that's what gardens are for me. That's how I feel in my garden. And I'm spending so much time in my garden in these crazy times and focusing on why I came here, the high reasons that I incarnated to be the person I am. My garden is a big, huge part of that. I go there in silence in the morning before the sun rises, and it's just me and the sky and the flowers and God and silence. And that's my
Wow.
deep practice these days.
That is a fantastic place to find peace, absolutely. But we know you had some formal training in dance, right? And you were introduced to the floral arts through your family. But as far as any formal training on the floral arts side of things, is that something you got into a little bit earlier? Is that something you kind of more built a little bit on your own?
I had the honor of working with a master florist as his apprentice. He had a shop called My Son the Florist in LA. And in the 90s, he was the man. He was,
Hey,
Elizabeth.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You don't have to repeat the answer to that question, but it did break up right when you said his name. Can you say
Oh,
his name one more time?
yes, Wilbur Davis.
Wilbur
And
Davis, and
yeah,
you were
and
Wilbur Davis' apprentice.
his shop was called My Son the Florist.
Okay.
And he had like a who's who of Hollywood as his clients. And he also had AIDS. And he knew his days were numbered. And I got to apprentice with a master who knew that his days were numbered. So it was an amazing, amazing experience to be around him.
How long did you get the opportunity to do that?
About a year and a couple of months.
Okay. And
Mhm.
did that stop when he unfortunately passed?
No, I left him before that. I just stayed with him for about a year and a half. And then I went on and started doing my own thing.
And is this when you is this when you moved to New York?
Actually moved up to Santa Cruz,
Okay.
California. And I went there to visit some friends, and I fell in love with it. I don't know if you've ever been to Santa Cruz, but it's,
Yeah.
redwoods and just gorgeous. And within, I don't know, 5 months, I had my own shop. And the community there just really embraced my work. And, I was doing all the parties at the chancellor's house. And that's where I met STS9 as
That's,
well.
we have a whole section about your work on stage before we get to STS9, but I was curious if this is where the first time that you meet them. In what capacity? Do they just walk in your shop?
No, actually, one evening, it was the first time I saw him. It was at a place called Palookaville. And I'm talking like, I don't know, 99 or something, or 2000, that long ago.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
some friend said, "Hey, there's this band playing called STS9. You want to come?" And Palookaville was one of my clients, so I could always get in free there. So I walked in with my friends, and I was blown away. basically. I mean, I was drinking
Mhm.
orange juice, and I was like, did someone put something else in my orange juice? Because I'm feeling like it. What's up? And, how fits can do.
Sure.
And
Oh, yeah.
I loved them immediately. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, before we get fully into that conversation, right? So we've covered your background in the floral arts and in the performing arts, right? Like, when is the first thought cross your mind that these are two things that you could start to combine together?
It wasn't really my idea. I was hanging out. I was like the resident floral person at a place called Omega Institute in New York. And one evening I was having tea with a woman that was on the board of directors, Linda Goldstein. And she said, I love your floral work, but, what have you done besides this? And what have you done before it? And I said, well, I was a dancer. And she said, oh, well, I'm Bobby McFerrin's manager. How would you like to go on stage and dance with him while he's singing? And I was like, when? Where? Yes. What?
Mm.
And so it was part of the San Francisco Jazz Festival, 2002.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yep.
So
Wow.
this is in your document in the documentary that
Yes, it is.
you showed us. And
Yes,
is it that performance? I wasn't clear if that is the actual video the first time you did that.
it is not. That was the first time we did
It is
it.
not. Okay.
Nope. First time we did is part of the San Francisco Jazz, and he had a thing called Who's Next? And he had like 15 different artists. One would come out on stage and he would just automatically start creating with him. He had a dancer, he had Ornette Coleman, David Grisman was there, the Dirty Dozen Brass Band was there, a ballerina, jugglers, and I was the actual last. So like he was receiving his applause, and me and my team went out and put out a 6-foot table and had a 4-foot glass vase and all of these flowers. And he came out and he was like, what is all this stuff? And we just went from there, 15 minutes.
15 minutes. You're
Yeah.
just improv. Okay, here we go. Is this the actual arrangement?
It is not.
This is not, but this is
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. I was confused. Who
No,
was pulling this video up?
this is so the first time I had my video guy there. We were all ready to go, and someone walked up to him and said, "Hey, you can't do that." So we did not get the first performance, but he came to Omega Institute the next year, and I said, "We will be getting this." So this is what you're seeing now.
Okay, so this is about a year into this
Yes.
idea taking full form.
Exactly.
And at this point, how many times had you done it? And for people that haven't seen this, maybe unfortunately we don't have Anthony on video because he had a bit of an accident, so we're keeping the voice. So if you're listening, fine. But for this part, for the people that haven't seen you perform, maybe turn on the video. If not, kind of walk us through what happens as you build these aptly named flower sculptures, Anthony. What's happening in your body? What's happening on stage? I mean, how does this all come together?
I am employing all of my training and counting on that and being as present as possible. And the flowers are moving through me into the vase, and it's very much hyper focus and freedom at the same time.
Okay.
Love that. I mean, go ahead, Scotty.
No. I didn't have a follow up. I was gonna let you ask the next question. I'm just kind of watching this performance now, and every time I see it, I'm just always fascinated by what's going through your mind as you create.
Right.
It's so funny because Bobby in you'll see later on in this video, he does say, and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube people can see if you're interested in a couple of things with the band as well. But
Oh.
I'm not in my head
Yeah.
in that way. I like I said, I employ all my training, and then the flowers are there, and it's become a deep prayer at this point, a joyful prayer. And part of what I do love to do also is hand flowers out to people. And so often I'll look out in the crowd and everyone is like the 4-year-old version of themselves reaching up for a flower. It's so, it makes me cry almost sometimes. It's so beautiful.
I
to
mean,
see people.
I was handed a flower by you, I believe. Were you at both wave spells?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember which wave spell it was, but I
Mhm.
remember you handed me a flower at one point, and I
Mm.
felt so special because I knew your history with the band, and you
Mhm.
might not even know how you're viewed in the community, but it's cool when you're around, man. And I remember everybody that weekend being like, "Oh my God, did you see Anthony's Ward's here?" And you were walking around with that flower, and I don't know. I totally connect with that 4-year-old version of yourself because
Mhm.
there's something about you and your presence with STS9 that feels so fundamental, and
Mhm.
at the base of everything, like the purest version of what this is. It's like childlike. It's really cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So when you're preparing for a performance like this, Anthony, are you planning these sculptures out ahead of time at all? Or is it completely reactive to what the music is doing in the room? Or walk us through kind of your preparation process leading up to it.
it depends. There have been a couple of times when I've had things choreographed, but it's mostly improvisational, really. It is like, there are certain things that are planned, like we're doing Bicycle Day in San Francisco, 2 days, April 18th and 19th, and the first day is going to be all white flowers, so it'll be all white flowers.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so that carries a certain energy. And then the next day will be
Yes.
really colorful, psychedelic. So I really let the flowers move through me. I mean, I'm the conduit, but it's really just, knowing that I have my position strong. I'm ready to do it. I'm able to do it. And it's a lot of just being free with the music. And I love the music, I mean, if it's music I love, we can just go there,
Yep. Yeah. And
Have you? My bad. Go ahead.
No, and one thing that comes to mind too is like, okay, like the floral arrangements, right? And like arranging them and watching someone do that is impressive in itself. But I think one thing that's completely unique is the motion that you help channel, right? And I wouldn't say as much instill because you said the flowers are moving through you. Like, what kind of energy do you think that provides a sculpture like this once it's finished?
Well, I mean, all of the flowers still have their energy. They're cut from their home plant, but most of the flowers I work with are still in the process of opening. So all of that energy is there. All of that energy is there.
Wow, that is. I was not prepared for how cool that answer was going to be.
Yeah, and it's almost like they've been through more of a journey too. Once they get there,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about that, specifically the flowers. What is the philosophy behind your materials? Like it's not just blooms, it's stems, it's leaves, it's the container itself. What are you trying to say with each one? And I mean, a more layman question: how do you pick before you come? I'd imagine sometimes, like you mentioned, you did weddings. I'd imagine sometimes there's a little bit of commission type input, but just
Mhm.
talk us through that process.
Well, yes, I do weddings. I love doing weddings. In 1999, I did the wedding of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, and that
Go.
became, yeah, that was one of my first jobs in New York, and that became a big part of my income because people love to spend on weddings. But it's always different. So for a wedding, I like to ask their favorite flower, the bride usually, because women are more into the flowers generally. Sometimes guys are. When I did B. Getz's wedding, he loves sunflowers, so we put lots of sunflowers everywhere for him. The flowers, you know, they're inherently healers of ours. So whatever flower we put out, people will love. One of the things I love about being with flowers is that I learn from them. One of my main lessons I learned from flowers is equanimous love. Like, if a daffodil was in front of the most horrible human in the world, it would be giving as much glory and beauty as if it was in front of an innocent child. So that's one lesson you can learn from flowers. Flowers are radiant and beautiful for all of us equally.
This is the part that I was most excited about this interview is when the way you talk about flowers. Nate, did you have a question?
No, yeah, I mean, I just had thought about the term prayerformance, right, to describe what you do, right? Where did that word come from, and what does it mean to you?
There's a woman named Ishani Ishaya who is one of the fierce ruling diva goddesses with fire and belly dancing and the whole festival scene. She lives up in Portland.
Okay.
It came from her. First time I heard it was her, because what she does is prayerformance. And really what this whole thing has become for me is a prayer. And sometimes when I'm done, I'm just like, what just happened? Because I'm so channeling, that I look back and see what we actually did, and then I'm like, whoa, okay. So it's a prayer. It is a prayer. To be able to be a person that shares and displays some of the most beautiful offerings this earth has. Flowers, man. I get to bring flowers places. They're taking me around the world. And
is it always out of your garden, or if you're traveling across the world?
Mhm.
What? This is another question I just thought of. We don't have this written down, but
Mhm.
talk to me about that network. I've never even thought about this until right now. If
Well,
cross
there are amazing flower centrals all over the world. There's one in London. There's one in Tokyo. There's a great one in San Francisco. New York is crazy. And so I have connections with people in different places that that I like to go to. But also one of the things I like to do as well is, if a flower is just at its peak, and I'm going somewhere, like last year when I went to Cosm, or the year before, to do fall equinox, I brought a bunch of flowers from my garden. I boxed them up, and they were some of my checked luggage. I love doing that. I mean, I love, because the flowers in my garden, they're mostly from seed, or they're perennials, and I've been nurturing them. And when I water them, singing Om Shanti and just being, really, really putting love into the flowers. So I love working with them.
And I wanna spend at least one more question about that specifically, because in your book, in your interviews, and even in the posts that I've seen you make in different Facebook groups that we're both in, you say things like the flowers and I. There's a real weight to the way that you talk about them. So which is it? Are you creating art through the flowers, or are the flowers creating art through you?
It's a symbiotic dance. We're there together. And,
Zach says that word at every show these days.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're there together,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know I
Um,
wouldn't be there. I know I
so
wouldn't be there without the flowers. So I give them the respect and put them before my name. You know.
I really appreciate that, and in hearing a little bit more context into the way that you got to where you are today with the flowers, all the way back to the story about your grandmas. I mean that makes sense why they. I mean, they carry as much weight as any character in your story, obviously. I want to talk about the idea of impermanence for a second.
Mm-hmm.
These these sculptures don't last.
Right. Right.
That impermanence is naturally baked into the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that a feature of what you do, or is that the whole point?
Well, the point is, flowers are not supposed to last.
Sure.
They're supposed to be exactly how they are, and it's up to us to appreciate them how they are. And the impermanence of it is part of the beauty to me. They're like a time elapsed version of our own lives, and that's part of the beauty to me. That,
Mm.
that
That is beautiful. So if I may get a little psychoanalysis real quick, is there anything in your own stories, personally and specifically, that draws you specifically to that element of impermanence, like from childhood, or anything that you just kind of naturally identify with that and were drawn to?
I think my introduction with my grandmother, and then knowing that my connection with the earth has really come through gardening and through the flowers. So that's really. Mhm.
Are your grandparents still alive?
No, they're not. They're not. They're
When
they're
when
they're
did
they're gone.
when did they pass?
Oh, years ago, many years ago. But they're right here, man. They're right with me
Of course.
in the morning when I go with my garden. One of the things Dr. Angelo taught me is that when one is putting your best foot out in the world, and whenever I'm going to take a stage or teaching or just going to garden, I bring everyone who's ever been kind to me along with me. Like, come along, Dr. Angelo, come along. So when I do something, I never feel like I'm alone. I have that background. That's one of the
Did
pearls
they
that.
did they get I mean, that makes perfect sense, and I mean, with each flower being unique, and I don't know, you could get real philosophical with that idea.
Mhm.
Did they specifically get to see you in this version of yourself as like a professional flower creator, or was that something they got to see while they were on this earth?
No, they didn't. But I have this one 83-year-old aunt, Aunt Jean, and many of the posts that I make, she's the first one I send them to. So it's
Hmm.
really yeah, yeah. And I send a lot to Alice Walker too. And I just got an email from her this morning saying she's in Mexico. She has a house in Mexico, but she'll be back this summer, and she and I will spend some time together. She has been my main uh, teacher in so many ways since 1996 when I met her, and she's a wise woman. Let me tell you. And she's also fun and funny and all those
Lo-
things.
Love it. Well, we have before we get into a little bit of the STS9 segment of the conversation, you were gracious enough to share with us a video documentary that you're working on, and you had a fantastic clip in there, which is a great example of what you did live with STS9. So before we get into that conversation a little bit more in detail, figured we'd start things out with this.
People get it. People realize that I'm there with the flowers. The flowers and I are there to help them open their hearts. You know, it's the same thing. That's flowers inherently help people open their hearts. It's just part of what happens.
Great example
Wow.
of some prayer there. Yeah, I'm sure some great memories there. So,
Yeah.
you
That was
talked,
the first
you
time. That
talked,
was the very first time. It was
oh, the first
Berkfest.
show that you shared the
Yeah,
stage with them.
yeah. It was Berkfest.
Um,
Does anyone know
okay,
about? Yeah. It was Berkfest.
is that it? That's on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, I think it was like,
Mhm.
gosh, wow, 2003 or something like that, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hmm.
And what a special piece of the band's history where they're really starting to create a name for themselves, right? And they're really starting to
Hmm.
gather a following that is here almost 25 years later, right? Well, 25 plus years since they
Yeah.
started. But
Yeah.
I know you shared with us how you first stumbled across STS9. Talk to us about like when you start connecting with them, when you meet them, and when conversations about a collaboration start.
Well, my friend Rob Newell was housemates with Zach, who lived in San Francisco at the time. Rob and I were at Omega Institute together, and I was in Santa Cruz. Zach was in Santa Cruz too, but I didn't know him. But actually, he was living with Rob at the time in San Francisco, and I just started going to shows, and I would, I'd bring flowers and put some by the stage. Maybe it wasn't anything formal or anything, but Zach came to see me. They were playing a gig where Spearhead was playing there as well. I don't know
Okay.
what it was, but it was a festival. And Zach came to see
Okay.
what I did with Spearhead, and he was like, "You needed, yeah, let's have you do that with us too. Yeah." And I was like, "Of course." So
I-
yeah, that's how it happened. Zach was like, "Yeah, bring that to our community. Yeah." So that's how that happened.
So you performed with them in Nagoya, Japan, in August of 2007. Just talk us through that whole experience. How did that come to be? I've
Mhm.
got a couple of questions about that, but just how do you arrive in Japan with STS9?
Well, I had a friend who was my assistant at the time, and he comes from a family that is untold wealthy, like crazy well, like they started a bank in Japan 200 years ago, that kind of money.
oh my
And
Nice.
gosh.
Good
I
to have
kind
a
of helped.
couple of those in the tank.
Yeah, I kind of helped him realize how blessed he was instead of fighting his family. I was like, dude, you've got all this money. Let it be a blessing. Don't be a spoiled, poor little rich boy. Be grateful. And so he started connecting with his family, and his father was very, very happy about that. And he's like, you know what? If you ever want to come to Japan, let us know. And the day that I found out the guys were going to Japan, I called them up, and they're like, you got it. So they arranged everything. My friend Christian found out where all the dates were, and I got there and went to his fat apartment in Tokyo, and we went from there. And I did something live with him at a record store in Tokyo the first night. And it was, yeah, man. You know, watching them in Japan, I don't know, man. I know we've all been in like audiences where everyone is freaking out, but I've never seen anything
Mhm.
like the kids in Japan. The girls were like screaming and crying
Wow.
and fainting, like literally fainting and
So
crying.
it's like it's like Beatles mania over there for
Yeah.
STS9.
Yeah. I think it's because they're so reserved emotionally, and they were just having their hearts just blown open, and they were freak. It was so
Wow.
beautiful. It was beautiful, man, watching them.
I never thought about the element of because this is something that I've talked to Hunter about ad nauseum, because I think it's so interesting. Hunter has told me that he doesn't feel right like interacting with the crowd on stage. He almost feels
Hmm.
like that's like a veil that for him as a performer personally, he doesn't like to really draw back. And
Hmm.
until you say that, I've never thought about how attractive that must be to a Japanese audience just because of their culture being so kind of reserved. Um,
Right, right.
wow,
And
what a
and then
cool observation.
one of the things that I know about the music is Phipps's, working with that group called Tomodo, which so
Hmm.
he slips in those heart opening tones and things. And we all know what that feels like, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But but these kids were just, man, I've never seen anything like it. It was incredible.
Yeah. Well, outside of the bands, the band themselves, you are the only person we've had on the podcast that has gotten to see STS9 in another continent.
Hmm.
And that is a really, really cool aspect of it. Yeah, I mean, STS9's music, right, with a few exceptions, is largely wordless, right, which
Hmm.
leaves it wide open to interpretation, right.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
same could be said about your work, right. Would you say that artist ambiguity was part of what attracted you to them early on?
The way the music made me feel, just right away, man, right to my heart, man. Just, there'd be times when I'd be, Hunter would be playing some chords or something, and I'd just be bawling in the audience, or just getting down
Mm.
because like you can't help it. Yeah. I mean, they're if I will always say they're my favorite band in this lifetime for sure. If I have to
Mm.
pick, it's them. No other band has done for me what their music has done.
Mm. This is a really cool aspect that I wasn't expecting, Anthony. You truly are a fan.
Oh
Like
yeah.
outside of being a peer or a collaborator on stage, I mean, the way you talk about Hunter or Phipps, I mean, is the way we talk about these guys on a week
Mm.
in and week out basis.
Mhm.
I think that just makes this connection that we're talking about that much more special because
Yeah.
I don't know it's something that me and Native said a few times is every once in a while, I'm not going to name any names obviously, but certain bands get on stage with or certain performers get on stage with STS9 and it's very clear they don't get it.
Mm.
And I mean, even in that clip, it's funny. You said people get it. That's how it cut from that first big clip. And you could have been talking about STS9. We know you're talking about your art, but
Mhm. Mhm.
just the way that you can describe what you do on stage, it's just has such a similar spirit to what they do. I don't know. It just makes sense why you connected so much to the music.
I mean,
Um,
music, so much music from them. Hunter turned me on to Tipper, and then Tipper was the first electronic music producer that I did a whole set with. Because like with Van, I would do one song, and so yeah, and that was like an after party at a Soundtribe show up in Denver. So, I
mhm.
mean, they've been so intrinsic in my growth and my with what I do. So much gratitude.
So were there were there ever moments on stage where you felt like the music of the band and the flowers were in conversation with each other? Like, is the band responding to you as you're creating these things?
It's a dance. Like they're playing the song, and I'm responding to the music. And I know the music, so yeah, it's a combination.
Um, I yeah, that's extremely apparent. You mentioned that your connection with those guys and now gal runs very deep, right? And you've also spoken about how Ikebana principles have shared your approach or shaped your approach to floral art, right? Do you think that studying those principles while sharing a stage with STS9 in Japan created kind of a parallel awakening, maybe something that deepened both your craft and your bond with the band at the same time?
Yes to all of that, because it was always a dream of mine to go to Japan. And then when I had the opportunity and to be with them as I was having this experience, so elevated my experience and my journey so deeply. Yeah. That some of the kids were calling me Flower Sensei. Flower Sensei.
Flower
I was
Sensei.
like, whoa.
All right. Well, thank you for naming our episode.
Added to the many the long lists of titles that you've accrued over time for sure. But go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, you walked us right into that. First of all, my favorite part of this podcast is when guests kind of unlock things I'm almost certain are unknown Sound Tribe lore. Hunter Brown putting Anthony Ward onto Tipper is one of my favorite things I think we've uncovered. Is that the first time you've ever told that story?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in public anyway, but yeah, he's like, "Oh man, you love our music. You'll like this guy Tipper. You'll dig him."
Oh,
And he
God,
was
it's so
right.
cool. I can't wait to ask him about that when we have him back
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
our next question was about Tipper, not Tipper specifically, but you've worked with Tipper, Polish ambassador Michael Franti. You told us a story about Bobby McFerrin already. How does working with different artists change what you make? And does the music dictate the sculpture, or does the sculpture kind of take a life of its own, regardless of who's playing the music?
It's always a different journey, and I open myself to be free to the moment. Call upon all my skill, and that's how we do it. I've worked with a classical pianist who I've done the stage for. I've done the stage at Carnegie Hall like 17 times now, and
Wow.
it's my friend Katya has the most classical piano concerts at Carnegie Hall, and she and I do a piece together. And then I've worked with Deva Premal and Mitten, who are like sacred chant singers, and Michael Franti and I used to do quite a bit together as well. And then the electronic music has been amazing. Flying Lotus and Desert Dwellers and Random Rab. But all of that really came to be, doing the whole set at this after party. It was a Sound Tribe after party. So, and Tipper's manager was like, "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've been in this business 25 years." And then, so Tipper would have, and at that point, he didn't have all the big, visual thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And Tipper he's not a showman. He's there to do the music. He's not going to be bouncing his hair around and stuff. He wants to do. So I got to be like, the attention, take the focus off of him. So they were flying me back from New York to do like one-off gigs and stuff the first couple of years. And, just being around Tipper, one time he came out to do Camp Bisco, and he stayed over with me at Omega, and he's an amazing, really beautiful human being, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the transformational festival circuit, right? So you think about events like Gratifly, Rootwire, Sonic Bloom, Earth Dance, right? That community is something special, right? What does it mean to you, and where does your work fit inside of it, in your opinion?
Well, bringing, a lot of the times at these festivals, kids are journeying on whatever substance or whatever, and one of the things that's beautiful to be able to do is to help them have a beautiful experience. I've had, kids come up to me and say, we did the Deepsters and then you were on the stage. I was like, yeah. And I dropped like 12 hits of acid, and I was like, why don't you save a little bit of that for the next stage? But it's been fun. The transformational festivals, I haven't been to any recently. It's a different time now, and I hope that things are different. But the last time I went to, there were too many cokeheads. Not into it. So, there were days back in the day. It was really different. I don't know what's going on with the festival scene, but man, we had some beautiful experiences. I did Envision Festival in Costa Rica 3 times, and the Symbiosis festivals are all that, man. They're the for me. And then back east, I did Gratifly and Rootwire. Those were beautiful experiences. I don't know. Kids come and they want some magic. They want to be open, and the Flowers and I help them do that for sure. So I'm talking to there are a couple of festivals that I still haven't done that I want to do. One called Secret Dreams.
Yeah.
And actually, I was on the phone with some people today, so that's looking like that's a possibility for this summer. Yeah.
What is that? The only one? Name the ones you want to do. Put it in the world.
Well, I would love to do Lightning in a Bottle again, but kids, leave the Coke at home. If you're going to do something, shouldn't it be about building community instead of a disassociative? That's my bit. That's everyone does what they do, but that's my take on it.
Okay.
Festivals are to build community. They're to build community and to be together, and that can be achieved.
I completely agree. So segueing a little bit, Anthony, if you'll indulge us for a few minutes, we want to do a little bit of name dropping with you, because you already did it a little bit with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, and I laughed in my head because I thought those are probably the least famous people that we're going to talk about on this podcast. You have been in the same room with some of the most influential people on the planet. So let's go there. We're about to listen to a clip from Eckhart Tolle. You have created for him as well as Ram Dass. How does creating in such a deeply spiritual context differ from creating at, say, like a music festival? Is your internal process the same, or does the presence of people like that affect anything that you do?
The very first spiritual teacher that I created for was Ram Dass, and he was really funny. He looked back at me and he said, "I'm supposed to sit on that? I don't think I'm worthy of that," because we created this thing with these 25-foot tall bamboo, and he's like, "Really?" And I said, "Well, you better sit on it because it's made for you." But as soon as he started talking, I was like, "Oh my God, it directed my life." I made a prayer to the world that I could honor people who are lifting the vibration on this planet. And 3 months later, I was coming out of the movie theater in Santa Cruz, and this Tibetan nun came up to me and she said, "I saw what you did for Ram Dass, and the Dalai Lama's coming. Would you be interested in?" Yeah, I definitely would be interested in that. So I did it in 1996, and it was an event called Peacemaking: The Power of Nonviolence. And His Holiness came to hang out with inner city kids, really. That was the purpose of it. Wow. To teach them how to deal with violent situations non-violently. And they had grieving sessions where these tough-looking gangbangers were bawling their eyes out. And that's the kind of work they did. And so I have looked for, when someone is coming that I revere, like Thich Nhat Hanh, I got to do work for him. And I worked at the Omega Institute, which is a spiritual retreat center in upstate New York. I worked there
Okay, because
every.
I saw the Omega Institute come up
Yeah,
a lot in the
yeah.
research I was doing for you, and I was curious specifically what it was.
It is like the leading spiritual retreat center in the country. And so while there, Ram Dass would come for a week, and then Alex Gray would come, and then Bobby McFerrin would come. And any type of spiritual practice, the top people would come through there. And my job was to make a floral offering for them. And when Eckhart came the first time, he was really taken with the flowers, and he wanted to see me. His partner said, Eckhart wants to meet you. And when I went up to see him, he said, when you write your first book, I want to do the foreword. And I was like, why don't you just write that down on a piece of paper, and that could be the foreword, okay? Like, just write that down. But he took it deeper. I did the work for him, and the book A New Earth, the first 2 pages are about flowers. And Eckhart, I told him, I read that when I do my workshops. And he said, well, your floral work inspired me to write about flowers. And I was like, okay, write that down. That could be the foreword.
That's so cool.
Yeah. He was a very just like angelic person. And he just really loved the work that I did, I don't know. I can say this. Spiritual people like flowers, okay? It's just something that I've noticed. I've noticed that.
Let's go to that clip from him of this video you shared with a monologue by him in the background here.
Earth, 114 million years ago, one morning just after sunrise. The first flower ever to appear on the planet opens up to receive the rays of the sun. Prior to this momentous event that heralds an evolutionary transformation in the life of plants, the planet had already been covered in vegetation for millions of years. The first flower probably did not survive for long, and flowers must have remained rare and isolated phenomena, since conditions were most likely not yet favorable for widespread flowering to occur. One day, however, a critical threshold was reached, and suddenly there would have been an explosion of color and scent all over the planet, if a perceiving consciousness had been there to witness it. Much later, those delicate and fragrant beings we call flowers would come to play an essential part in the evolution of consciousness of another species. Humans would increasingly be drawn to and fascinated by them. As the consciousness of human beings developed, flowers were most likely the first thing they came to value which had no utilitarian purpose for them, that is to say, was not linked in some way to survival.
This part got
They
me.
provided inspiration to countless artists, poets, and mystics. Jesus tells us to contemplate the flowers and learn from them how to live. The Buddha is said to have given a silent sermon once, during which he held up a flower and gazed at it. After a while, one of those present, a monk called Mahakasyapa, began to smile. He is said to have been the only one who had understood the sermon. According to legend, that smile, that is to say realization, was handed down by 28 successive masters and much later became the origin of Zen. Seeing beauty in a flower could awaken humans, however briefly, to the beauty that is an essential part of their own innermost being, their true nature. The first recognition of beauty was one of the most significant events in the evolution of human consciousness. The feelings of joy and love are intrinsically connected to that recognition. Without fully realizing it, flowers would become for us an expression in form of that which is most high, most sacred, and ultimately formless within ourselves.
that doesn't get you excited to
Wow.
see the rest of that project.
Yeah,
Hearing
that's
that back,
that is the
Anthony,
introduction. That's
yeah.
the introduction to our documentary, Dancing with the Flowers. Yeah.
So I before I ask you about anyone else, did you hear that before it? Like, so talk to me about the first time you hear that, because I mean, you talk about chill inducing. I was when I threw this on, I was casually playing with my 2-year-old, and I heard his voice, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I realized that I was not going to be casually watching this and playing with my son. I was going to put him to bed and focus, because I don't know, just that got me so locked into the weight of this interview as far as I was concerned, because I don't know, man, you channel something so primally beautiful, and I don't know, what was your reaction hearing those words the first time you heard them?
Well, I read them the first time.
Okay.
And I know Eckhart. So there are a couple of people that I have this crazy thing that happens. Alice Walker's one of them. When I read their words, I can hear their voice in a way. Yeah, there are just a couple of people, but Eckhart's one of those people as well. Yeah, we had a deep connection like the moment we met each other, and he helped me see flowers deeper by how deep he is. So yeah, and when he told me that, the work that I did for him inspired him to think about writing about flowers even. It's humbling,
It's incredible. I've read that book. That's so cool.
A new earth.
You've also performed at two presidential inauguration balls. The Peace Ball hosted by Harry Belafonte, cool, and the Green Ball hosted by Al Gore. What do you remember about those nights? Those are big rooms.
It was amazing. It was for President Obama, and he didn't really come
Both
to
times?
Pardon me?
Both times? Both were Obama inaugurations?
Yeah, they were both Obama. It was
cool.
One night, and Michael Franti said, "Yeah, we're going to do two of the balls for President Obama. Come along with us." And I was like, "I'm here. Here I am." And one of the great parts of the evening was like seeing Joan Baez dance with like a group of men around her. She's like the belle of the ball. And hanging out with Eve Ensler, who wrote the Vagina Monologues, and introducing Michael Franti to Alice Walker. I mean, it was just like, and then Harry Belafonte coming up to me saying, "Young man, you just keep at it." I could have just fainted right then. Yeah, because I did.
My gosh! If you no, you keep working hard, and you might stay in these kind of rooms, young man. That's hilarious.
We heard another story, or at least a little bit about it, about Bette Midler, right? Her showing up before anyone else for an event like this, no makeup, in jeans, and said, "Put me to work." All right. We want to hear about that.
When I went to New York, I knew Uma's parents. That's how I got her wedding, because her parents work with the Dalai Lama. So when I decided to move to New York, I said, "I'm coming." They're like, "Oh, great, because there's a wedding we want you to do." And when I got the first 2 weeks I was in New York, I did the Ethan wedding, and then I did a party for Madonna the next week. And then Bette Midler's people called. And when I went to see Bette Midler, she was just very unassuming, and just really just, she hired me like on the spot. She's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And the day of the event, it's for, she has the New York Restoration Project, which is a group of gardens around New York. They take over vacant lots and make them into gardens. That's Bet's big thing. So she has this fancy party at the Waldorf Astoria, and the day of the event, it was like 8 in the morning. I was the only one there, and she came walking in, and she's like, "Anthony, put me to work." Like overalls, no makeup, just jeans, just tennis shoes, and I was like, you know what? This is my job. You go do your job. But I love that. I love that she came. She came to to help me out. That was like, it made me love her even more. And the room was full of like Hollywood people.
You broke up a little bit there at the end.
Oh, the room was full of big named people you would recognize for sure. And it was an auction, so she made a lot of money for her event. I don't know, man. I found the reason I came here. The high reason is to work with these flowers, and the universe conspires with you when that happens. I mean, that so many of these things have happened because I was open to them. When I did the work for the Dalai Lama, at first, Uma's parents were like, I told them what I wanted to do, and her mother was like, "We don't have that kind of money. What are you talking about? Oh, all of this stuff. What are you German?" And I was like, Nena, I'm donating all of this. And I became their best friend right away, It was at the Bill Graham, and we decked it out. We had like 2 truckloads of flowers.
Wow.
My flower people were like, "You're doing something for the dollar? Come on." And they just donated. My friend John Kavanaugh, his family has a nursery, and they donated all plants. And we brought 25-foot tall bamboo to go the back of the stage. It was amazing work that we got to do. And it was all for him. And, the producers were like, "You have to meet him. He has to meet you, because every time he sees your flower, it's like he loves what you're doing. So we're going to set up this time, and you're going to meet him." And yeah, there's a video of it. If you go on YouTube and Anthony Ward meeting the Dalai Lama, for some reason they were filming me that day. So I got the very first time I met him, we filmed it, which was like so fortuitous. I was so impressed with him because he came in to the room, and there are all of these highfalutin people, and he walked up to a woman that I had noticed before, because I could tell, like, sometimes you see people and they were the kid that got teased,
Mm.
And he walked up to her. She was a security guard, and he bowed to her, and he touched her face on each side, like as soft as you would touch a baby, And he bowed really deeply to her, and he walked away. And she started bawling, like convulsing. Like I asked her if she needed water, because I thought she was going to like pass out or something. And I thought maybe her own mother never did that, But he walked right up to her and out of everyone. And
Wow.
I've seen him do that over and over again. Yeah.
Well, Anthony, we've talked about it right here. Right? You've worked all over the world, Japan, Paris, all over the United States, right? What do you say you notice more, right? You talked about cultural differences and how Japanese people saw what you were doing and what STS9 was doing. Do you notice more that the cultural differences in how people receive what you do, or does this thing you make transcend all that? Is that more of the common thing that you notice?
You know what? In the rooms that I get to create in with the spirit of the people that are there, I'm at home, and people get it. Because sometimes people are in their head, and they're like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" And when they're in their head so much, and then they'll be like, "Oh." I did a thing in New York at a warehouse, and I was right in the middle of the room, and it was packed, and techno DJs, and these really buff-looking dudes came up to me and were like, "Dude, I don't know what you were doing, but it was beautiful." And they were like almost in tears. And I think when people get out of their heads and just see what's happening and feel what's happening, then it's good. People get it. But I've done rooms that people did not get it. for years and years and years. You know the show on TV, America's Got Talent? They had been after me to do it, and I was like, I am not doing a show that Jerry Springer is the host of. Ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
But then Nick Cannon was Nick Cannon, who is questionable these days, but back then he wasn't so much. But he was the host, and Michael Franti was doing a show like right across the street from where the thing is filmed. So they were going to fly me out. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. They did not get me. They did not get me.
Oh,
They didn't get it.
this is.
They didn't
I
get
would
it.
expect this.
No,
I would expect this.
You know, it was like David Hasselhoff and Sharon Osbourne and Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan was like, this show just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And you're just putting dodgy flowers into a dodgy pot. And I said, there are no dodgy flowers, only dodgy people. And Sharon Osbourne loved that. She cracked up. And I was like, thank you, David Hasselhoff. They did not get it. I got XXX. But it was fun. And the cool thing is, it was never aired on TV because I didn't want it to be aired. But it was an experience. It was quite an experience.
Wow.
Yeah, they did not get it. One guy at the end stood up and he was like, oh my God, it's great. And the whole rest of the room was like, what? So, anyway. No, they don't. People don't always get it because they're stuck in their heads, you know?
Well, especially for a show like that. I mean, every time, every video of you is very free and open, and Eckhart Tolle even used the word formless. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in a formatted. Hey, I mean, I'd imagine you get 3 minutes to do something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I would feel robbed if that was my first time.
It was a trip. It was a trip because you know the producer gave me this pedestal that was spinning around, and at the time I had never worked with one, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna spin it." I'm like, and this is like 2 minutes before I'm going on. But it happened, but it didn't get aired, which was my choice. Yeah, it was my choice for it not to be aired.
Good.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few more questions about your solo work because you provided us with that documentary, and I have not had a chance to read your book, but I was fascinated by the idea of being with flowers. What made you want to write a book, and who did you write it for?
Well, you know, like I said, even before I knew I was going to write a book, Eckhart Tolle was like, when you write a book. So that gave me a lot of encouragement. I always wanted to write a book because a book is something that will be here when I'm gone. And, you know, I want people to know that I was here. And this book will be that one thing. I mean, I don't know what else will be. And it helped because I knew that if I wrote a book, I would go deeper into my practice. And the people that I worked with, it was a small publishing house. The guy gave me ideas, like he said, why don't you do a meditation for each chapter? So there were flower meditations that I had been doing, and then there are some that I created for the book. So I knew that it would be a way to go deeper, and I'm always looking for that.
So go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Nate.
No, it sounds like it's a little bit of a combination of giving people a practice they can bring into their daily life, and a little bit about the document of your philosophy, right?
Yes, exactly. And you know, that's what I wanted the book to be about. You know, when I showed it first to Alex Gray, he was like, you know, one of the things I love about the book is that you show all this beautiful stuff, and it's also very how-to. So, and you know, you show all the beautiful stuff, and then you're like, now you do it. And that's one of the things that I love about teaching. You know, watching people. I learn so much when I teach. That's one of the reasons I love it. I teach a workshop that I've been teaching for the last 20 years, which is being with flowers, the same as the book. And it's great. It's great fun. Yeah.
So sorry. You broke up at the end of that, and we actually do have a question about that. So, I mean, what do you want people to walk away from those workshops feeling? What's the goal of an Anthony Ward flower workshop?
To help people go deeper into their own personal journey with the flowers. That's what the workshop is for. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, another medium, right, that you're getting into now, right, is we a few minutes ago just watched the intro to it, the documentary Dancing with Flowers, right?
hmm
First off, where does that stand? When could we maybe be able to expect to start to see that?
Next year, I have some things that I want in the documentary. I'm going to India, and I'm going to visit the Dalai Lama at his home in India. And so next year, I have some things that we want to capture. So I would say that the following year, we're going to be ready to put it out into the world.
Love it. And a film in itself is something that is so much different than your probably most common medium, which is a live performance, right? It's very put together, right?
hmm
What can a film capture about you and your work that a live performance can't?
Well, it can show you different aspects in a very concise manner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a film can do.
So you just mentioned there being some things that you want to capture before you make this documentary official and kind of put it out there.
Mhm.
You talked about wanting to choreograph something with a ballet company or create like a Cirque du Soleil level of event.
hmm
Is that still the vision? Is that something that you is that a box you want to check before you release this documentary?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily. But I have just been connected with two powerful women in the business of making theater. Um, so it's going to happen. Yeah, that's in the works.
Love it.
All
Well,
right.
just for us and our listeners, Anthony, um, what does your daily relationship with flowers look like when you're not on stage?
As I said, I get up and go early to my
Mhm.
garden. I go to the garden and in silence, and I whether I'm weeding or transplanting like we're doing lately, um, it's just taken me deeper into this deep, beautiful conversation with the flowers. Yeah.
On average, how many hours would you say you spend in your garden every day? I would love to see what your personal garden looks like. I bet it's unbelievable.
It depends, but when I'm here, I can spend 7 or 8 hours in the garden and not even realize it. Yeah. So
I would expect that from the flower sensei.
um, for somebody in the STS9 community who maybe caught a glimpse of you at a show or but doesn't know your work deeply, where do you think would be the best place for them to start?
YouTube, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. And you can just go look under Being with Flowers, Anthony Ward. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. And then also, if my book is available, um, eBay or whatever, and you can get it on sale really cheap sometimes. The book is really, if you want to know about me, read my book,
Mm.
and about what the
Okay.
Yeah,
flowers might do. Yeah.
We'll make sure to link all that, and your YouTube page in itself is great, to the book and the YouTube link as well. But yeah.
So, last one, Anthony. What do you have coming up? And how can people find you and find where you're going to be and support
Mhm.
whatever you're currently building?
Well, I'm on Insta and Facebook, Instagram, and also what I have coming up. I've got Bicycle Day coming up in San Francisco, April 18th and 19th, and that's a yearly thing that we do. And then coming up in October, I'm going to be at the Fox Theater with Spongel on
Oh,
October 30th and 31st.
oh, Doing
And
Halloween Spangle shows?
yeah.
That doesn't sound like a bad time.
No, we'll have a good time. And then I think we're working something out for Secret Dreams. So
Good.
we're working on something. I think that's going to happen. So that those are some that I have coming up, and then I have, weddings coming up as well.
Yeah, I think people would need an invite to those, but the other events have a great opportunity. It seems like you're going to be around quite a bit through the festival circuit this summer. So, yeah, everybody pay attention and open your mind to the kind of stuff that we're seeing here. But, Scotty, you got anything else?
I just thank you for joining us,
Yeah.
Anthony.
Thank you guys, man. Thank you so much. I love this community so much. I love the music so much. And thank you so much for helping me share what I do with the people. I appreciate it so very, very much.
Of course, man. Your presence has been felt in this community almost as long as the community's been a thing. But I don't know if you've ever spoken this much on the band. And so, when we started, you were on our list of kind of maybe hard to get guests. And to your credit, and we say this about every guest that joins us, and I think it speaks to how good a people the band is. You couldn't have said yes quick enough, and you could not have worked harder to make this work for us. We had 2 misfires last week. We mentioned in the beginning, you're in a library right now doing this. So, man, someone that has been in the rooms that you have been, we are absolutely humbled by the opportunity to talk with you and pick your brain a little bit, man. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much love.
Yes.
All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Music or Spotify, throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, throw us a comment or review if you're feeling nice. Throw Anthony some likes and subscribes and comments and reviews and everything like that as well. But other than that, yeah, we've got a couple, like we said, STS9 shows coming up this weekend, and we'll be back next week to recap those. But everybody, chest pats, much love. Have a great weekend.